We're joined in studio by Karina Gould, and if you recognize the name, you should. She's been in the news now for a while. She has been a Liberal MP since 2015, and you're all of 37 years old.
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Which
makes you the baby in the group running now, right? To decide to run for the leadership of the party.
Yeah, definitely the youngest, but have more experience than some of the others.
Okay.
So.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it. Number one, it's great to meet you. And I guess for our listeners today, because let's be fair, between Chrystia Freeland and, of course, Mark Carney, a lot of the press is sucked up, a lot of the air is sucked up between those two, so perhaps people don't know you as well. So I thought this is a great opportunity for people to find out more. We're just talking before coming back on air. So you've been, just to give people a bit of a bio, you've been basically a political nerd for most of your life, fair to say, right?
Fair to say.
Self-described.
Yeah.
You went to McGill.
Yep.
You have a degree in political science.
Yep.
You have at least one graduate degree.
Yeah, I have a degree in master's.
Of course you did.
A master's in international relations. Yeah.
And you get elected at the age of 28.
Yeah.
For the first time back in 2015. Pretty close race from what I understand back in the day. And now you've been in government since then. So you've been along for the Justin Trudeau ride, really since the get-go.
Yeah.
And now you've decided to run. So I have a couple of questions. The first one obviously is why now?
Yeah.
And that's kind of followed, or maybe we should put a comma in there and say, did the Chrystia Freeland incident with Justin Trudeau spur you to decide to run? How much did that come into effect?
Yeah, for sure. So two great questions. I would say that I decided to run for the Liberal leadership position 2 weeks ago. So unlike others, I haven't been organizing for months or years, perhaps. And what's really cool about that, Aaron, is that in 2 weeks, we've stood up a national organization. Since I launched last weekend, we've raised $100,000 from grassroots contributors across the country. I don't have the deep pockets of some of the other candidates, and it's people who are sending $10, $25, $100. Our average donation is $200. And so it's hundreds of people across this country who have put their hands up and said, yes, I'm in. And so I wouldn't have run, if the Prime Minister hadn't have resigned a couple of weeks ago. But I think it's really important to do so right now, because I think there's a huge opportunity for the Liberal Party of Canada to regain the trust of voters, to demonstrate that we actually hear and understand what people are going through. I was telling you just before we came on air that I'm a mom of 2 young kids. I know what Canadians are living on a day-to-day basis. I understand times are tough right now. And I think the Liberal Party of Canada needs a leader who understands what everyday Canadians are going through. And that's why I'm putting my name forward, because ultimately I'm doing this because I want to make Canadians' lives better. So
you just said it was just a couple of weeks ago you finally made the decision to run. And I asked if the Chrystia Freeland incident, was that the sort of straw that broke the camel's back for you? Was that really where you said, you know what, I can't kind of go along with something like this. I have to do something.
Well, it was the fact that when I knew the Prime Minister was leaving, that we needed to have somebody to step in and take leadership of the party. Look, there's been a lot going on in the Liberal Party of Canada for the last little while, and certainly in Ottawa. But for me, this has been a life's project in terms of being a part of the party, but more importantly, contributing to bettering Canada. That's why people join a political party. That's why you run for office. And I think there is a moment right now where we can reconnect with Canadians, listen to them, and stand up for them at a really critical time where we're facing threats not just from south of the border and the really serious economic threat, but also the threats that we're facing from Pierre Poilievre and this iteration of the Conservative Party of Canada that quite frankly want to change who we are as Canadians.
So you say in an article, you're quoted as saying, we have to be honest about the fact that Canadians have lost trust in our party, in the Liberal Party. And some will look at you and go, well, you've been in this party as an MP for the last 10 years. If that was the concern, why did you not say anything then? Or why did you not make your voice heard then?
Well, I did make my voice heard, but I made it heard in different forums. I was a cabinet minister for 8 years, and so part of my job is to speak at the cabinet table. And I can't talk about cabinet confidence, and we have something called cabinet solidarity, where we have those intense debates, right, in cabinet, and then we come out a unified front. But what I can say is that I've always been a grassroots politician. I've always listened to people in my community, and I've always made sure that what they're telling me, I share at the table at cabinet.
So people, you just mentioned you've raised $100,000 grassroots, right? Which is different, of course, from the other two main candidates. Mark Carney's already got, 40 members backing him. I think Chrystia Freeland's got in the neighborhood of 20. Not that we're counting. You have a different approach, but 100,000 is barely a third of the way to get to 350, which is what you need to get. Are you concerned? What happens if you don't get there?
No, I'm not concerned, because what I'm getting from people is that they believe so much in, my optimistic vision for the future, and the fact that they know that I'm a fighter. They've seen me in the House of Commons over the last 8 years, and particularly the last 18 months in my role as House Leader, that they're excited about my candidacy. And for me, if it's someone who's giving $10 or $25, that's a huge vote of confidence, because that might be a lot of money for them. And so that gives me a lot of confidence. And that's hundreds of people who are raising their hand and saying, I'm in. And, it's funny, you talk about some of my colleagues, which power to them, support who they want to. That's great. But what I love is when they call me to say, I've decided to support someone else, but don't worry. My dad has told me that he's supporting you, or I was just at the hairdresser and they're rooting for you and they're joining the party for you. And so for me, I represent everyday Canadians. Yeah. And that's what matters, because at the end of the day, who chooses the next Liberal leader? It's not caucus. They're an important voice, but they have an equal vote to every single member across this country.
I think clearly, we have two favorites in this race right now. That's pretty obvious. So you're the underdog in here. Mm-hmm. Let's move forward. Let's say, for whatever it's worth, you win this race. Mm-hmm. Then we know there's going to be a motion to bring this government down. Then we're going to do an election. And chances are, unless there's a humongous surprise, that the Liberals won't form the next government. What happens then? You're prepared. Now, you're young enough, I guess. You can't ask this of some of the others, perhaps. But I can ask of you. You're in this for the long haul, right?
Yeah.
You lose, you're going to be sitting there for the next 4 years in opposition. That's good for you. That's okay.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it to win the Liberal leadership, and I'm in it to win government. That's why you get into these things. But as I say to everybody, I'm the candidate for today, tomorrow, and for years to come. I care about this party and I care about this country, and we have an important role to play to make sure that we are standing up and defending Canadians. So for me, that's what this is about. The job that I want is the one where I get to stand up and defend Canadians. When
we talk about, citizens having lost trust in the party, as you point out in the quote I read, where did the Liberal Party go wrong? What did it not understand?
Well, a couple of things. So I would say that right after, kind of the tail end of the pandemic, when inflation really started to increase and get out of control, we didn't respond quick enough. We kind of said, yeah, it's global, it's happening everywhere around the world. And we weren't listening to what Canadians were telling us, was that they were struggling. And they were saying, this is really hard for us. We've just come out of this terrible pandemic where we're all experiencing this collective trauma. And now when we wanted things to go back to normal, they didn't. And instead of us as a government collectively saying, wow, you're right, this is really hard, and here are some ways that we can help you, we said, look at how great we did on the pandemic. Look at how great we did in keeping the economy afloat. And while those things are true, what Canadians needed in that moment was someone to say, yeah, it's tough. And here are some ways in which we are going to help you, not look at how great we've been. And so that's one of the things that I think was important. And whether that was with the cost of groceries or the cost of housing, we eventually made moves in that direction. But I think we took too long to get there. And then on the other one that I know affects people in Montreal, and it certainly affects people in the GTA where I'm from, is, the auto thefts and rising crime. And again, we have made important moves at the federal level, whether it's with regards to bail reform or the auto summit that we held. But it took months for us to respond, when we should have said to people, no, your security is paramount. There is nothing more important. And here's what we're going to do as a federal government. So I think those are two examples where people said, hey, we're trying to tell you what matters to us, and you're not paying attention. It's
like a government that spent too much time looking in the rearview mirror, perhaps, right, that you're describing here. But if we can, hypothetically, what would you have done if you know that this is what Canadians are looking for? And I ask that because I know part of your platform now is to extend part of the GST credit, right? You want to do that for Canadians.
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One, on auto theft, I would have said we needed to have that national summit 6 months before we did. I also would have said that there were changes to the criminal code that we could have brought forward. So, for example, if you're a shipping company that is taking cars that have been stolen across the world, you should have some onus and responsibility for that. Like, you shouldn't get off scot-free because you say, well, I don't know what's in my shipping containers, right? Like, we need to have more accountability and more liability in the process to actually stop these things from happening and not allow people to make money off of stolen goods. That's one example. As you mentioned, one of the things that I'm committed to doing is making permanent the removal of GST on things like children's clothing, on diapers, car seats, strollers. You know, you're talking about being a grandparent.
Yeah.
I'm mom of 2 young kids. I've got a daughter who's 1. I go through a lot of diapers, right? I've got a 7-year-old son. I buy clothes every couple of months because he's growing, which is great, and I want him to. But, you know, if you're struggling to make ends meet, how can we make things that are necessities a bit more affordable for you? The other thing that I would have done, and I'm committed to doing, and it's a bit different in Quebec because you don't have the price on pollution in the same way as we have it in the rest of the country. But I think, you know, at the time when inflation was really high, we had other countries around the world who have a price on pollution who said they're pausing it. They're not going to increase it because people are saying they can't afford it right now. And we didn't do that. We increased it. And so one of the things that I'm committed to doing when I become prime minister is canceling the slated increase for the consumer price on pollution as of April 1st.
Talking the carbon tax.
The carbon tax, exactly, as of April 1st, because people are struggling right now. So what can we do to help make things a bit more affordable? You know, the government can't do everything, but there are real things that we can do to help people out.
Because you don't want to miss a thing. Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
Welcome back. We are live in studio with our guest today, Karina Gould, Liberal MP, running for leadership of the Federal Liberal Party and to try to succeed Justin Trudeau. We've been talking about a lot of different things. Part of your platform, you mentioned the idea about the carbon tax, at least the consumer end of it, which you'd do away with. The other issue that's come up a lot, and I think it was a bit of an eye-opener yesterday when Chrystia Freeland, or possibly the day before, said that she'd do away with the capital gains tax, the same one that she introduced, she is now apparently ready to get rid of. So first of all, your reaction to that, and secondly, what would you do in this case?
Well, look, I think the capital gains tax has been very unpopular. I've certainly had a lot of conversations with the tech industry, with small businesses. I'm the daughter of a small business owner, so I understand how much work people put in to small businesses and how much they don't necessarily get back from it. And so I'm going to have more to say on this in the coming days, but I think what's really important is that the policies that we put in place create growth and economic growth, and they attract entrepreneurs and people who want to start businesses to our country. So I will have more to say on capital gains in the coming days. Okay.
The other issue, of course, very much in the news every single day, sadly, is Donald Trump and his threats against Canada. Again today, by the way, I don't know if you heard this, he decided to throw healthcare into the mix today, saying that if we were the 51st state, our healthcare would be much, much better as well. So in answer to those,
I guess he doesn't know how much it costs to get healthcare in the United States.
Yeah, well, he doesn't, because it's insurance that he can afford. For a lot of other people, of course, that's not as easy. But with respect to these threats, and you know, I heard Justin Trudeau the other day, this is the new buzzword now, which is robust retaliation, whatever we end up doing. What is your position on that?
Well, first of all, I mean, I love your shirt here that says Canada's not for sale, but our sovereignty is not negotiable, right? Like, we will never become the 51st state. We are Canada, and we are extraordinarily proud to be Canada. And so, you know, for the Americans, I think it's really important for them to understand that they actually need us. They need us both for our resources, both for the fact that our economy is so intertwined. So I'm from Southern Ontario, and I'm next to the Ford assembly plant. In the last Trump administration, I went and visited the Buffalo Ford stamping plant. That stamping plant in Buffalo wouldn't exist without the Ford plant in Oakville. Like, our economies are so intertwined, and there are many jobs in the United States that depend on trade with Canada. So not only do we need a robust response, we need a unified response. And, you know, whether you're in Quebec, Alberta, Ontario, or anywhere else in this country, we are Canada first, and we need to band together and make sure everything is on the table. This is, you know, a question of who we are as Canadians. It's the future of our country. It's the future of our economy, and to make sure that we are protecting those jobs. And one other thing that I would say that is really important is we need to make sure that we also have a plan in place if these tariffs do come into effect, of how we're going to support Canadians through that. We saw with the COVID-19 pandemic that EI wasn't sufficient. We had to bring CERB on. One thing that I'm committed to doing is making sure that we get Canadians through this storm if it comes, both in terms of our strong response, unified response to the United States, but also making sure that they can pay the bills while that's happening.
So you mentioned something interesting, this idea of a unified stance, a Canadian stance, yet we know at the same time we've had people like Danielle Smith in Alberta speaking out on her own provincially, Doug Ford doing the same in Ontario. Does that work for or against a unified stance?
Well, look, I think what Premier Danielle Smith doing is very irresponsible. It is completely against having a unified stance, and you have to, right now, when your country is under threat, not be thinking about one particular industry. Forestry and aerospace workers in Quebec are just as important as oil workers and auto workers in Alberta and Ontario. And so for me, it is not an option to not have everybody on board and unified, because otherwise what are, I don't want to call them adversaries, but, the people who are trying to divide us are going to be successful, because that's only weakens our stance. So we absolutely have to be unified, and that has to be something that every single Canadian stands for. I mean, I know that people in Quebec and across this country are already thinking about when they go to the supermarket, they want to buy Canadian products as opposed to Americans. So if individual Canadians can make those decisions and stand up for Canada, I think every premier should be able to do that too.
To that end, this whole idea of interprovincial trade in Canada is something we've never taken advantage of, and nobody seems to really know why. Is it time for that to change?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like it's enough to have these trade barriers in place. Like, time is up for that. I mean, this could be an amazing opportunity for us as Canada to finally get our act together and be able to trade amongst each other. Let's see what opportunities are available to us to shore up our own domestic production. My message to the Americans is we don't want to do this. We don't want to have to fight you when it comes to trade and when it comes to tariffs, but we will if we have to, and Canada will come out stronger.
Yesterday, there was an announcement that the Supreme Court has decided to take on Bill 21. It took a long time to get to this point, and there has been a lot of reaction. Obviously, in Quebec, from the government here, it's been negative. They don't like this idea. And then the federal government yesterday, we heard from Arif Irani saying that the government would be there, as they said, when David Lametti was still Justice Minister, to be there. They will. What do you think about this idea? And should the federal government be involved or not?
Yeah, well, look, I understand that Quebec has a unique culture, a unique identity, a unique history in Canada. But let's be clear, this case that is being brought forward is being brought forward by Quebecers. And the role of the federal government is to stand up for the rights and freedoms of all Canadians. And the Liberal Party is the party of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so I do think it's important. And if I were Prime Minister, would continue to intervene in this case.
Would it apply to Bill 96 as well?
Well, we'll have to see where that lands. But I think what is really important is that for Quebecers and for Canadians, we have to stand up for their rights and freedoms.
So you are from Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
There is a note today. Chrystia Freeland put out, a press release saying fight for Canada. And one of the issues in it, one of the suggestions, and it's in bold letters, so it must be serious. It says, I am also calling on each of us, each of those running for leadership of the party, to pledge to run as a Liberal candidate in the next election and serve in the next parliament. So I think we've already established that's fine for you.
Yeah.
You don't have an issue with that.
No.
But she's also saying she's calling for 4 candidates' debates.
Great.
4 of them, 2 in each official language as soon as possible. You're okay with that?
Terrific. I think that, particularly in what is a shortened leadership race, we need an opportunity for Liberal members. And by the way, anyone who's listening and wants to vote in the upcoming Liberal leadership race, you got to register with the party by Monday. So make sure you do that, because otherwise you won't be able to vote. And so we need an opportunity for Liberal members to actually hear from the candidates. I think that's really important. You want to know what we stand for, what our vision is for the party and for the country, so that you can make that informed choice. And, I've been in Parliament for 10 years, so debating is not something I'm afraid of in either official language, and actually relish the opportunity. And I think it's also a great way for all of us to prepare for the upcoming election campaign, because this is a race amongst Liberals right now. But whether it's in April or October, we're going to be in a federal election this year, and it can only make each of us better as we move into the really important fight that we're going to have to protect Canadians, which is against Pierre Poilievre in this iteration of the Conservative Party.
How's your French?
Good. Excellent.
Where'd you learn French?
In Burlington, Ontario. I was in French immersion. And then I moved here to Montreal and went to McGill and practiced here. And then I perfected it in Parliament over the last decade.
So you would have, I would guess, having heard Mark Carney speak French, and even Chrystia Freeland, who speaks French, but it's not exactly I don't say the word perfect, but is your French better, do you think, than theirs?
I will let other people make that decision. But what I have heard from others is they say that my French is very good. So,
last question with respect to French in Quebec. You know, the argument is always you can't win an election unless you can win Quebec. Can you win Quebec?
I can win Quebec, yes. Yeah. You know why? Because
but you're going to tell me.
Yeah. Well, because I have, so one of the reasons why I'm a Liberal is because when I was younger and watching the results of the Quebec referendum come in, I remember sitting on the living room floor with my parents feeling this anxiety for Canada. And I remember Prime Minister Chrétien coming on TV and feeling this great sense of relief that my country was going to be okay. And I realized that what Liberals do is they fight for Canada. And Canada wouldn't be what it is without Quebec. There is no Canada without Quebec. And I have so much appreciation for the unique role and history of Quebec. I have so much admiration for so much that has happened in this province that we've learned from. I was the Minister of Families. You know, we took the daycare program from Quebec and have rolled it out across the country. I speak French. I care about the role of Quebec. And I know that we're going to build an amazing team in this province where we're going to be able to win back.
Karina Gould, I want to thank you. First of all, it's great to meet you. I wish you the best of luck. And I thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a break. By the way, if you missed any of this, we're going to replay this back just after 5:30. You'll be able to hear the whole thing again. Let's go to news. It's coming up next.
Montreal Now is brought to you by Dormez-vous. Give yourself the gift of great sleep with a new mattress, sheet